Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to another preview, and this time I am looking at the upcoming tier 5 German premium, so another German tank, the Turán III. Although it's on the German tech tree, it isn't actually German, it's another Hungarian tank. It's actually the second one we've got in the game after the Toldi. So if you're on NA, you've actually already been able to buy this thing, and so it's somebody pointed out, you know, the M41 video. NA got that on sale first. It was like, and they were like, "Oh, it's not really a preview." Well, maybe I shouldn't call these previews. Maybe I should call these like a first look video. That might be a more accurate way of putting it, because it's my first look at the tank. And in some cases, it's, you know, a first look at the tank in terms of it's not out yet. So maybe I should just stop calling them preview videos entirely. But the point of calling it that, though, to begin with, was it's not really a proper review, because generally with these machines, you don't get that much time to play them. In the case of both these premiums we were given to preview, it was literally 3 days in between them being given to us and then coming out on the server. So that's not a lot of time to really get to grips with the machine. However, this is one where I think I was a little more comfortable, because it's a mid-tier premium, a mid-tier medium tank rather, that happens to also be a premium. And honestly, the TLDR is, it's pretty much the firepower of a Panzer IV, but in mobility it's more like the G1R. So it's not super mobile, and although the Panzer IV's actually got the same top speed as this thing, it's got a much better power to weight ratio. But I'll come to the actual comparative stats in a bit. First we'll actually look at the armour of this thing, because it doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have a lot at all. So if I change the visual model to collision, and we shall see that the very best armour it's got is 75mm flat plate on the turret. Now there are bits around the gun mantlet that actually do stack up quite a lot, so if you get lucky and a shot just pings off the edge of the gun mantlet, it goes from 75mm there to over 200mm effective at the sides there, and at the top it's actually more like 300. So, yeah, that's the only armour you've got, effectively, that's any good. The turret armour might bounce stuff occasionally, lower tier guns, but the hull is much more problematic. It's 50mm, again, fairly flat. The lower front plate's a little more sloped, so you've got 63mm there, but effective, rather. But otherwise, by and large, most of the rest of the tank is 25mm of armour, apart from the back of the turret, which has got 55mm. The back of the turret has more armour than the front plate does. But yes, 25mm is a problem, because that means you're going to get overmatched by everything that's 75mm and above in terms of gun calibre. And there's quite a few of those guns around at the lower tiers, so basically you are squashy. And most of the mid-tier mediums aren't exactly known for their armour, but this one in particular, yeah, even if you're head-on against somebody, as you can see, the shoulders, as it were, there's a lot of HE shells that will... A 75mm HE will, you know, overmatch that 25mm of armour. So, yeah, it's not particularly well armoured. It's not particularly fast. It does have a decent gun, but... yeah, it's one of those ones where, because as with most new premiums, it doesn't have limited matchmaking. It's fine when it's top tier, but when you're bottom tier, yeah, maybe not so much. And I think that's just an issue for tier 5 mediums generally, at least the ones that don't have a good turn of speed, like, say, the M7 medium, or ones that have higher than average penetration, like the Sherman, for instance. So we'll actually have a look. Well, first I'll show you the setup I was using, medium tank, gun rammer, gun lane drive, and actually binos. But you could potentially put on ventilation as well, maybe. I went with binos because the base view range isn't particularly good. And if you're bottom tier, you're probably going to want to hold your distance and not really get up too close, because it doesn't quite have the manoeuvrability, and it doesn't quite have the firepower, so it's yeah, it's just the normal matchmaking is more of an issue than the fact that, you know, the actual stats of the tank itself. So let's look at it compared to its contemporaries. I can't fit all of the tier 5 mediums on this page because there are a lot of them, but I've picked out a few what I feel are pertinent ones. So I've got the Turán III itself, the Panzer IV-H, the other tier 5 German, although really Czech, premium, the T25, the M4 Sherman with the 76mm, the T34 with the 57mm, which has less penetration than the 76 that can get, but you see them being used a lot because it's got a very high DPM, as you can see, and then the Renault G1, again with a 75mm gun. So, although some of these can mount derps, I've not put the derp guns on, just for the purposes of this comparison. So, as I was saying, firepower-wise, it basically seems to be a Panzer IV. Identical DPM, as you can see. Very slightly more penetration, that's the major difference, but it does have a better aim time. And with the gun lane drive, you can get that down to less than 2 seconds. So, this is one of the better points of this tank. It does aim very fast. The gun handling itself, well, the accuracy, again, the same as the Panzer IV. The dispersion is very slightly worse, but that's because the Panzer IV's handling with a long-barreled 75mm is pretty good. And you compare that to the rest of the tier 5 mediums. This figure here, although it's worse than the Panzer IV-H, it's still better than its other contemporaries, including the T25. Turret traverse, yeah, it's still like the only one that's sort of better in some of these stats is the G1R, as you can see. So overall, the gun handling is good, and the penetration is adequate. The DPM is decent. The accuracy is okay. But you only get 32 rounds of ammo. And that's a problem because your rate of fire is such that you will burn through that. You can probably shoot all of your ammunition within 5 minutes if you're really trying. So for sustained engagements, for longer battles, you are in serious risk of running out of ammo if you aren't really careful. And even if you are careful, you still might run out of ammo. So, much like the Sentinel, it's kind of like this could be a really decent tank for its tier. Whereas the Sentinel, it was the aim time and the matchmaking, really, and the fact that it could see tier 6 tanks. I mean, that's just a problem for tier 4 generally. Well, seeing tier 7s is still painful, but it's not the aim time this time, it's the ammo count that's really quite bad. So, yeah, I would kind of throw in that really big cautionary note. Apart from this one thing, it feels okay. In terms of its hit points and everything else, we'll look at the rest of the stats now. As you can see, 40 kmh, same as the Panzer IV, same as the G1R, but the reason why I compared it more to the G1R in terms of mobility is that it's got not a fantastic hull traverse. The power to weight ratio is actually the same as the G1R, so it's not particularly fast accelerating. The reverse speed, however, is pretty good at 20 kmh. I mean, that's actually better than the Panzer IV, way better than the G1R. That's always been a problem with the G1R since it came out, is it reverses very slowly. That puts it at a serious disadvantage when trying to do peekaboo tactics. Terrain resistances seem okay, but it's the power to weight combined with the not great track traverse that makes it a little bit lackluster. Now, on Tanks GG, this actually looks better than the Panzer IV, but as I pointed out with the M41, and as I probably will point out anytime I do one of these videos, this isn't necessarily the true figure, because when you're looking in the garage at the top tracks traverse on really any tank, apart from premium tanks, where they only have one engine choice and one track choice, well, it's not really even a choice at that point, is it? But basically, even the top tracks, it always bases that traverse figure from the stock engine rather than the top engine, because your engine power has an effect on your tank traverse. So 32 will not be the correct figure. That's probably closer to 40 degrees a second, but I'd actually have to break out a calculator. And it would be really nice if sites like Tank GG would actually correctly calculate the top engine traverse, not just, you know, show the as it does in the garage, the top tracks with the stock engine, but yeah, it's a slightly misleading figure, and it has caused confusion in the past, and I've been confused about it in the past myself. I think most notably with the Cromwell B, and it kind of was pointed out to me by people, but it's still one of these things that it's not particularly well known, I think, by a lot of people, so I do try and point it out. In terms of hit points, you're doing better than average, way better than average, with 570 hit points, but that's still not as good as the T25. And honestly, this feels like a more fragile tank than the T25, so it easily could have had the same amount of health. And this is getting into tier 5 heavy tank hit points territory, so yeah, they really could have given it more health, just because so often I found myself trading health to do damage. And it doesn't have a lot of it, even so, and it's maybe gonna survive an extra hit or two when it's top tier, but against things like KV2s, OIs, I mean OI experimentals even can still two-shot you really easily, just the same as the rest of these machines. So yeah, it's still not great in that regard. Lastly, view range, 330 meters, doing better than the T25, but worse than everything else. So that's why I was using the binoculars on it. But overall, it's not great. And honestly, if you're trying to spot for yourself in most tier 5 mediums, it's probably going to be a bit of a struggle. I mean, the Sherman's by far the best at 370, as you can see there. But yeah, if you've got the chance to sit and spot with the binos, then you can get the view range up to, I'll actually see from the stats there, it's over 400 meters, so I think it's worth having the binos overall. So honestly, just before we get into the gameplay, I'm going to say, unless you want an extra German medium crew trainer, because there's a lot of premium German mediums these days, I can actually like there's not even the ones that we see here, but there's the likes of, like, that's not even ever been on sale, the Panzer III. So that's another one that's citing the data files. But things like the, I mean, if you've got a Schmalterm, for instance, or a 5.4 Alpha, there's probably not a lot of those. Actually, no, that's another Panzer IV, isn't it? But yeah, at tier 8, of course, there's the Panther 8.8. There we go. So it's possible, and of course there's some low tier ones as well. So it's possible, if you've got a bunch of German premium mediums, you can get a really good crew going if you have the same crew just doing dailies in each one. And if you don't know, my really good KV4 crew, that's how I got that. I got a lot of Soviet premium heavy tanks. So for a long time, I would religiously get the daily in each of those, and I've ended up with a 5-skill crew in far less time than it would have taken with just, 1 or 2 tanks getting the dailies there. So if you want that daily, then sure, it's tier 5 premium, it's not going to cost a lot. But if you want an actual reasonably fun tank to play, I'd probably still recommend the T25 more. Even though it's got a worse view range, even though the gun handling stats are worse, it's got a bit more penetration going, it's a lot faster, and it's got more hit points. And it's also got better armor. In fact, we'll actually just be able to check the armor, I think. I don't think it's hugely better. Actually, no, it's not hugely better at all. It's 50 mil still, but it's sloped 50 mil. So it's not particularly actually less squashy overall. But I would still take this thing, I think, over the Turán III generally. So onto some gameplay. I think I've actually sat and talked longer about the tank than we're going to see it being played, because I've only got the one replay for you this time, but it is a pretty good one. Oh, and one quick addendum before I do actually put the gameplay up, because I did mean to mention it in the preview section. Here you are seeing right now the crew skills that I used, because I feel like it's handy to know that, just so you know I'm not using a completely OP crew when getting a feel for this thing. And so, finally, onto some gameplay, and everybody goes, huzzah! Well, actually, there is one other tank I want to talk about first, in comparison to this thing, which I could have when I was doing that in the on tanks.gg, but it is the Matilda Black Prince, which I know you don't see a lot of around, but despite it having the advantage of limited matchmaking, it actually suffers from the same problem this does. Very limited ammo for the rate of fire. It can burn through its ammo so quickly. And I think when it first came out, it actually had something like 40 rounds, which was utterly inadequate. And they did eventually buff that to 55 rounds of ammo. They get an extra 15. And this is all going by memory. I could be wrong about those figures, but well, I'm definitely right about it now having 55 rounds, but I think it was 40 rounds when it first came out. So this is in the same boat. It just does not have enough ammunition. And as you can see, I've got what I would consider an adequate supply of APCR for a tier 5 medium. I've got 8 rounds of premium, 2 HE, just in case I come across, I don't know, a flak bus or something. But that only leaves me with 22 rounds of AP ammo. And you can fire in less than 4 seconds. Or you can fire a shot in less than every 4 seconds. So you do have to be careful, and even though I am reasonably careful in this one, and most of my shots connect and do damage, I'm still going to basically run out of AP shells entirely. I end up going onto the APCR against targets that really don't need it, because I have run out of AP. And I think, much like the Sentinel, this is... I don't know, this seems to be their thing now, that we have premiums that just kind of almost good enough to be the same as the regular ones, except they then give it one stat or set of stats that really shafts it. I mean, the FV4202, for instance, it was the gun handling. Well, the gun handling and the speed of the thing, and they didn't touch the speed of the thing, but I think they did buff the gun handling. But yeah, that was exactly the same boat. It had the gun handling of a derpy 122mm Russian gun on a supposedly very accurate, fast-handling British 20-pounder. Not 20-pounder? No. Yes, it was 20-pounder, wasn't it? So, yeah, and then the AC Sentinel, again, 40mm gun, very quick-handling, fast-firing 2-pounder, except it had a 2.7-second aim time. And although this fares a lot better in terms of its gun, it's the ammo count this time round, so this seems to be the thing Wargaming's doing at the moment, and I wish they wouldn't. I wish they wouldn't. If you're going to give us premiums that now no longer have limited matchmaking, then if you make them slightly worse than a regular tank of the same tier, then okay, sure, but they're not making them slightly worse. What they're doing is they're going, well, in stats, here's a tank that's somewhere in the average, you know, between all the rest, except now also you have this one cripplingly bad particular stat to deal with as well. And it's not a good way to balance these machines, honestly. I think they're making a mistake doing it that way. That seems to be their current philosophy, and I do hope they decide to change that. So, as with the Sentinel, where I said surely they must buff this at some point, I'm thinking this ammo count, surely they must buff it as well. It is the one major flaw with this machine. It's, in all other regards, not a bad tier 5 medium, but it just suffers so badly because of this ammo count. Now, this was recorded during the April 1st event. If you're using my mod collection, basically you just have to rename the folder, and it's now all working correctly again that they've removed the April 1st game mode. But I didn't actually re-record this footage. I could have, actually. But I am a bit pressed for time with Poland coming up, so I've only got so much time to, you know, do things over and over again. So I'm just going to go with the footage I've got. Now, so far, I've mostly been hitting things from range. I did get very lucky in that the archer shot me in the tracks, although I could have survived that hit. I mean, this is a tier where the extra hit points comes in especially useful. There are fewer derp guns around. And also, this was good matchmaking. I mean, the enemy team didn't have any OI experimentals. I haven't been targeted by artillery, and so this is probably as good as it will get. Now, you're about to see a thing, but you didn't see it because it didn't happen. There is nothing that happened just then. You had a temporary blackout, which was very strange, I'm sure, but you'll be fine. You'll get over it. But nothing at all happened there. Anyway. So as we can see, this penetration, more than good enough to punch through the front of this Excelsior turret. If he'd angled the turret, I might have struggled a bit, but he wasn't. He was just keeping it flat on towards me, so I was just able to use the AP rather than go to the APCR. But I am actually almost out of AP at this point. I started with 22 rounds of AP, and I've now got 2. And also, these last couple of tanks are proving to be... they're not wanting to go down without a fight. The archer in particular is sitting on 1 kill. He's going to pick up... and there we go, picked up another one. He's going to get at least 1 more. In terms of how this performs when bottom tier... I mean, it's a tier 5 medium tank. As with any tank, when you're extremely bottom tier, or even just a bit bottom tier, you're going to struggle more, because you're just going to be so much more dependent on your teammates. You can do so much more less yourself. You have much less... you have less opportunity to take your own initiative. And that's just part and parcel of the frustration of playing World of Tanks sometimes, is that it's just taken out of your hands. Whereas in this kind of scenario, when you're top tier, as you can see, you can be pretty effective. The only limiting factor really is that ammo count, and we keep going back to that ammo count. It's just pretty bad. It is. We're talking as bad as the Matilda Black Prince when that came out. So I take a derp shell from the bishop, but I don't think that was a penetrating one. I did lose some health. It probably plonked into my turret, but I seem to have been very fortunate in that I haven't taken any module damage out of that. So, yeah, he's down anyway. That was where that excellent gun depression... I didn't mention the gun depression, by the way. It's got 10 degrees most of the way around. It doesn't have it quite over the back, because there are the exhausts there and a couple of other gubbins. But, yeah, 10 degrees is good. It's as good as the Sherman, I think. And I think the Panzer IV has got 10 degrees as well. So, again, it makes for a fairly comfortable experience when there's terrain around and when you're top tier, when your allies are being competent. But even so, I've taken a bit of a beating, and that's only really, I think, 2 things that have shot me. So at this point, I didn't want to go after the archer because he had a very good defensible position. He could have killed me in 2 hits, but either we were going to cap out or he was going to come to us. And to his credit, he actually did try. He didn't just sit in the corner. So this ended up being a closer match than it initially seemed like it might be. But as you'll see from the damage count at the end, I did the lion's share of the damage in this game. But even though most of my shots hit and penned, I was still in serious danger of running out of ammunition there. So 2,500 damage done. I don't think anybody else did more than 700 on the team. So, yeah, we also had a brilliant Stug 3 who sat at the base all game, did 52 damage and got 1 kill, so it was a real credit. What a waste of matchmaking when you've got that matchmaking in a Stug 3. That's a brilliant little machine, and instead he just sat at the back and did almost nothing. In terms of credits, well, that was with a premium account, but also the premium shells I fired were paid for using gold, so that isn't the true picture. I would have made less than that if I'd been... if I checked the box to pay for premium shells with credits, but I forgot to do that. I think this was like the first, second or third battle on the preview account, so I hadn't gotten around to doing that yet. So overall, my impressions are, yeah, you're probably going to want it more for being something where you can get a daily for your German crew. It's got 5 crew slots, so that's pretty useful. But as an actual tank to play, to have fun in, to maybe grind some credits with, overall I still would recommend the T25 over this. But you know, it's better than a Matilda Black Prince at least, even if the ammo count is as limited. So hopefully you have found this useful, and if you have, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.